हरे कृष्ण। विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रसाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी वशत्यादेशतारिणे। हरे श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। राधा गोपीनाथ श्री राधे जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रा माई जय सुदर्शन जय गिरि गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गौरानिताय जय गौरानिताय जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव। निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यां नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नाष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोकैर्भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनदारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम् हरि ओम तत्सत्. So we are continuing our journey in Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 1, we are in chapter 18. So we are now moving into text number 30. So we have seen until text 29. So we'll start from text 30 today. Text 30. While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulder of the sage. Then he returned to his place. So basically, we saw how Parikshit Maharaj, because of the circumstances Krishna put him, he was under very severe thirst and hunger and fatigue. And when he entered, the Rishi didn't welcome him, nor he gave him water when he even asked for it. And so the king felt very insulted, and because of that, he was so upset that he saw a dead snake lying nearby, and he picked it up and put it on the Rishi like a garland, and he went away. So we all know how insulting that is, to put, particularly in Vedic culture, anything dead is considered very impure, right? So putting an impure thing as a garland is, it's a very big insult. Generally, we put garland to worship and praise someone. But here we see, when a dead snake is offered, the same activity based on what is offered becomes either a praise or an insult. And here it was used as an insult. So we all know that, this is not very natural. Srila Prabhupada says, in normal course, this is very natural, because for people to insult someone who has insulted them is natural. But it is very unnatural in the case of a Parikshit Maharaj who is a devotee. In that sense, it's very unnatural, because he is by nature very respectful to the Brahmanas and other jivas. As such, we see how he was merciful even to Kali. So, this was very unnatural in terms of what Parikshit Maharaj did. So definitely this is something that was, done or arrangement made by the Lord. Text 31. Upon returning, he began to contemplate and argue within himself whether the sage had actually been in meditation with senses concentrated and eyes closed, or whether he had been feigning trance just to avoid receiving a lower Kshatriya. Sorry. So now, being a great soul, Srila Prabhupada also writes in the purport, quoting Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that repentance comes, automatically in the mind of a good soul. Srila Prabhupada writes, as soon as he does something wrong. So real repentance, not like us, the repentance of a pure soul is really true. We see how, as soon as the king went back, he started contemplating on it. So he felt as such also that there was something unnatural that had happened there. One of the things that it says is he started to understand or analyze what he did is right or wrong, because if the sage has purposefully insulted him, what the king did in return was not karmically wrong. By the nature of a devotee, is not always humble. Even when he is insulted, he doesn't insult back. But even in common turn, in terms of varnashrama system, the king was thinking what he did was right or wrong. So the point here was that as the king, if post the situation, if he had the capability to analyze and understand that, whether the rishi was either in meditation or he was just closing his eyes to avoid, because king, being very knowledgeable in Shastra, he had the capability to very clearly understand. We see this even in the story of Haridas Thakur in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Haridas Thakur was a very elevated soul, right? And he used to chant Krishna's name 300,000 times every day, and he used to cry in ecstasy. He used to roll in the ground and cry in ecstasy when he hears the holy name of the Lord. Very elevated soul. So there was this one Brahmana, who saw how this Haridas Thakur was very famous as a pure devotee of the Lord, and he was super envious of Haridas Thakur. So he decided, what is big deal? I can also do what he is doing. So one day, when somebody was when the Sankirtan party was going in, Haridas Thakur, when he heard, he started crying. And then, this Brahmana, he wanted to imitate. So what he did, or rather, there was this snake charmer who was playing the music in his, they call it magudi in India, a particular musical instrument, a kind of flute with a bulge at the middle, which is used to attract snake, and the snake, when it hears, it dances to the tune of the snake charmer. So he was playing on it, and the snake was dancing. And when Haridas Thakur heard it, he understood. He remembered Krishna dancing on Kaliya Krishna, and he started crying out of ecstasy. And then this Brahmana thought, I will also imitate Haridas Thakur. So he started rolling in the ground, crying loudly, Krishna, Krishna. He was, when that snake charmer saw this, he became super upset. He knew that Haridas Thakur was an elevated soul, and this guy is imitating. So what he did is he took up a nice stout stick, and he started beating this Brahmana very harshly. And the Brahmana started jumping up and down. Oh. He started, where are you? He started, begging him, please stop, this is too painful. And then the snake charmer said, if you are really in ecstasy, you should not feel your body and the pain that I'm giving. If I had beaten Haridas Thakur, he wouldn't have even made a sound, because he would be so deep in meditation. So the point is even as common snake charmer can understand between a cheater and a non-cheater. So here, Parikshit Maharaj had such shastric knowledge, and he was trained in such high philosophical and practical applications of spiritual life, that he can very easily, he could have, even there when he was in the Rishi's house, he could have, ascertained whether the Rishi was really meditating or he was just insulting him. But he was not able to do so because the hunger and thirst completely covered his intelligence. Even though he had the intelligence, the knowledge, he was not able to apply it at that point in time, because Krishna covered it with, thirst, hunger, and other things. So, generally, sometimes our mind is covered of the knowledge. Even people who are very intelligent make mistakes because their past karma comes and covers them. You see that, most famous, there was this in the finance world. If you go, there is this guy called Black Scholes, two guys who got Nobel Prize for writing a formula in the share market about how, for options, there is something called options, for which you can, they wrote a formula to calculate its price. So they were so knowledgeable. And when this guy started an investment company, people were standing in queue to invest, because this guy invented the formula. So he will be great in trading, they thought. So there was this basic criteria. You have to minimum invest certain amount of millions to even invest in his company. So, but people were waiting. First year, it was super successful. And the next year, the whole thing collapsed. So what I am trying to say is even the most intelligent people, when their karma covers them, when the karma comes into play, when your past karma comes into play, it covers your mind and you make mistakes and your knowledge is of no use. Here, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wants us to understand that that's not the case here. It's not that karma covered Parikshit Maharaj, or his results of his previous action covered his knowledge, but it was Krishna. So there is two things. One is the Mahamaya, and the other one is the Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is applicable to devotees. Like, the devotees in Vrindavan, they don't even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? They don't see Krishna. So that is also a type of Maya. But then we see that, that Maya is used in the service of the Lord. Whereas we are also in Maya, which is Mahamaya, that we don't even know Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is a difference. Similarly, Parikshit Maharaj's covering is by the Yoga Maya potency, and not for the the Mahamaya, like ordinary soul. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain that this whole thing was done so that Srimad Bhagavatam can manifest for all the for all of our benefit. So Parikshit Maharaj was put into this temporary illusion so that the Srimad Bhagavatam can be spoken which is the literary incarnation of Krishna. Text 32. The sage had a son who was very powerful. Being a Brahmana's son, while he was playing with inexperienced boy, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. Then and there the boy spoke as follows. So now, there was a small boy, as it is said that, a tender age, very small boy, and he was playing, and then Prabhupada writes in the purport that the boy who was named Shringi, he acted as a tool, for Kali, because Kali, as we saw, he couldn't flourish as long as Parikshit Maharaj was there. So he, the Shringi, the boy, acted as a tool of Kali. Srila Prabhupada says, the whole thing of, Brahmana by birth, and, discriminating Shudras, and, all these injustice, um, all started with Shringi. Shringi was the reason the whole Brahmanical culture came into, became the cause of Kali. So there's in one other place, one other Purana, it is explained that the destruction of the Varnashrama started at this point, because the Brahmana boy, he cursed the devotee, and when he cursed the devotee, that kind of affected the whole Brahmana Kula, and then the quality of the Brahmana Kula came down. When the Brahmins came down, and then the Kshatriyas became weak, and that's when you see the foreign invasion, all the Muhammadan invasion, everything happened, and then the Kshatriyas fell, and then the whole Varnashrama system is lost. So basically, this is the starting point of Kali Yuga, and the destruction of Varnashrama started at this point when the boy, out of inexperience, he cursed a pure devotee of the Lord. Text 33. The Brahmana son, Shringi, said, "Oh, just look at the sins of the rulers, who, like crows and watchdogs at the door, perpetrate sin against their masters, contrary to the principle governing servants." So now Shringi, even a small boy, he couldn't understand what is right, what is wrong, who was who. He didn't have that capability. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, both by birthright and by training, Shringi was a Brahmana. But then he didn't have the cultural elements of what to do and what not to do. This is very, very important in Krishna consciousness or spiritual life. Sometimes we are very good in philosophy. Sometimes we are very, very good in our, doing things like, deity worship, or, cooking prasadam, or singing kirtan. Somebody will be very expert in all these things. But these two alone is not important. Equally important is the culture or the behavior towards other Vaishnavas. Yesterday in Jaiva Dharma class, His Holiness Banu Maharaj, he was mentioning how, Madhyama Adhikari, or a real devotee. Kanishka Adhikari means one who is a starter, one who is not steady, he's not in the picture. Uttama Adhikari, or a pure devotee, he sees everybody as a servant of the Lord. So it all falls into Madhyama Adhikari, who needs to understand who's a devotee, who's not a devotee, and then engage in the service of that devotee. That's a very critical element. So, Srila Prabhupada says the whole decline of the Brahminical culture started when they, when they were, when they gave importance to birthright and training, rather than without culture, right, without behavior. So this thing applies to our own movement as well. If we emphasize on doing things in a skillful way, but we are not very cultured, we're not treating other devotees properly, we are not in the service mood, then that would start the fall down of our own devotional life and our own organization. So we need to be very careful that we add this cultural element, that behavior of a devotee, setting as an example, and being tolerant, humble, truthful. These are all very essential qualities for us to, particularly if we are preachers or mentors, then these qualities become very critical and important to us. Text 34. The descendants of the kingly orders are definitely designated as watchdogs, and they must keep themselves at the door. On what grounds can dogs enter the house and claim to dine with the master on the same plate? So you see here how this boy, being very inexperienced, he's talking ill about the Kshatriyas, right? So basically, yes, Brahmanas are in the top in the order, but that doesn't mean that Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudras have to be insulted, right? That is true even in a normal Varnashrama system, but it is 100 times more true when it becomes a devotee. It doesn't matter where a devotee is born, what qualifications he has, but the moment somebody chants the holy name and becomes a devotee of the Lord, they should be worshipped. They are higher than Brahmanas, right? This boy, being very small boy and inexperienced, he couldn't understand that, right? So why did Kali enter his heart even though he had the philosophical knowledge and the training? Is because he didn't have culture or practical application, right? He was not applying these principles of Krishna consciousness in his life, the spirituality in his life. A Brahmana is supposed to be humble and tolerant and patient. So he couldn't take all those things. Those things were not yet manifest in the boy, and he was talking only, the Shastra says, the Brahmana is the topmost, Kshatriya should listen, Vaishya should follow the two Varnas, and Sudra should serve all these three. So these are all explained in the Shastra, and definitely Brahmana is the topmost. But the same Shastra also talks about the important characteristics a Brahmana should possess. He should be tolerant, he should be humble. So you see, this side, this boy had the knowledge, but he had no application of the knowledge. He was not on his own humble or tolerant. He couldn't take this insult from the other kids when they made fun of his father. Being a small boy, he couldn't take that insult. So we see this is what is the problem in Kali Yuga. So even as practicing devotees, this becomes very critical, that if we only look at this and get insulted, or no, we are not humble or tolerant, then we fall into the same pitfall, and we would end up doing offense to other devotees, which may destroy our devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada talks about how Brahmana is on a higher platform, Kshatriya is in a lower platform, and all those details are explained. But the point is this, that this practical application is very important, and practical behavior and developing these qualities in Krishna consciousness are very essential. After the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead and supreme ruler of everyone, these upstarts have flourished, our protector being gone. Therefore, I myself take up this matter and punish them. Just witness my power. So, the Brahmana boy, because he was trained and born in a Brahmana family, he had this Brahma Tejas, right? The of all the weapons, what is the most powerful weapon is the anger of a Brahmana. This is explained in Mahabharata. So, anger of a Brahmana is very destructive. So here, this boy, wrongfully, he became angry at Maharaj Parikshit. So we see again the case of how the Kali's effort is that this boy is at the stage of a Kanishka. He is not a Madhyama or Uttama. Is very clearly seen, because he is not able to you see the importance of the law. Devotees, how Krishna is acting through Parikshit Maharaj and protecting the world through Parikshit Maharaj. He is not able to perceive. Okay, when Krishna was there, everything was God. Now that Krishna is not there, then I'll become my own master. There are no pure devotees. We see sometimes devotees also come to this conclusion, like I don't have to surrender to a devotee. Everybody has a fault, and I'll worship Krishna and I'll achieve perfection on my own. So that mood is what Shringi had, is a very wrong mood. We should always approach Krishna through a devotee. If we try to approach Krishna on our own, it would always end up in this kind of scenarios. So it is very important that we understand this point. So Shringi, he thought that now that Krishna is not here, only that he has to take things on his own hand. So this is what happens as a devotee as well. Sometimes if we don't perceive the presence of pure devotees, we think, oh, okay, Krishna is there, and directly, nobody else is a devotee. I know everything. I will learn everything on my own, and I'll do things on my own, right? And that will always lead to disaster. This guy, like how Shringi took things in his hand. Sometimes devotees, we too tend to take things in his hand instead of taking guidance from a senior person, and that is a definite spell for disaster for our own spiritual life. And Shringi, again, we see that explain, behaving this way. Srila Prabhupada talks about how when people get little power, they want to call themselves God and incarnations, and they want to cheat others. So similarly, the Brahmana boy, the moment he got, the Brahma Tejas, he was going to use it with little power. He was using it against a pure devotee of the Lord, and we would see the consequence of that, and we are still seeing the consequence of it now. The whole world that we are living in is so advanced in Kali Yuga because Parikshit Maharaj is no more with us. When he was there, Kali couldn't flourish. Now we see how Kali is everywhere. Every aspect of life Kali has inserted himself into, and he is creating havoc everywhere. So this is basically is the start point of when somebody thinks that, okay, I'm related to Krishna directly, or I'm related to Paramaguru directly. I know Prabhupada, I can read Prabhupada books. I'll serve the deities, and I can achieve Krishna on my own. If somebody thinks that, they are in the biggest illusion. Without the mercy of the devotees, without the guidance of the devotees, there is no really for going forward. And if we neglect the devotees like the Shringi did here, he was not, he thought, okay, Krishna has gone, so that means I need to take matters in my hand, right? So let's see what happens. The son of Rishi, text 36, the son of Rishi, his eyes red with hot anger, touched the water of river Kaushika while speaking to his playmates and discharged the following thunderbolt of words. So we see how, he purified himself, and even before cursing, he was ready to use the Brahma Tejas in it. Text 37. The Brahmana's son cursed the king thus. On the seventh day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, because of him having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. So, here is, has uttered the curse that on the seventh day, a snake bird, Tataksha, will come and kill him. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport beautifully writes, the Brahmana boy called him wretched of his, Kulangara, or the wretched of the dynasty. But actually, it was the Brahmana boy who was the wretched of the dynasty, because by cursing a pure devotee of the Lord, he became the wretched, because from him onwards the whole Brahmana became powerless, right? They became like a snake without a poison or Prabhupada says, snake whose poison teeth have been broken, and then the snake becomes ineffective. Similarly, all the words of Brahmanas never became true after that, because of the curse, because how the boy cursed, and then after that, because he cursed a devotee, that created the bad effect, for the Brahmanas as a whole. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. So, seeing his father, he started crying. Oh Brahmanas, text 39, the Rishi who was born in the family of Angira Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the death snake around his neck. Text 40, he threw the snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened. So the father, as Srila Prabhupada writes in the Parpad, he didn't take the snake, because he was a real Brahmana, and he was already very self-realized. So he was not insulted. He was truly engaged in the penance, and he was, so he asked his son, why are you crying? Because, he didn't take it very seriously. So for him, it is not a matter of crying. There's nothing to worry about or cry about. But the son was very distressed, so he asked him whether anything else bad has happened. In text 41, the father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best among all the human beings. The rishi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary began to repent, saying, Alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He has awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense. So, Srila Prabhupada writes about how king is the best of all human beings, is a representative of the Lord, and whatever the king does is the law, right? So there is no way that he can be, he can be punished on the basis of the law, and he should never be condemned. Particularly a devotee king like Maharaj Parikshit, who has re-established the dharma and all good aspects in the material world, even in the beginning of Kali Yuga, right? Even Kali could not flourish. It was exactly like Satya Yuga. And king was able to, being a great devotee, empowered devotee of the Lord, he was able to establish such great kingdom. And so such a very important person who is serving the whole society, who is protecting everybody in the society from the impacts of Kali, should never be condemned, leave alone being punished by a curse. So here the rishi was super upset with his son, because a great he says a great sinful act has been committed, right? So in a natural thing, it's a tit for tat. The rishi did not welcome, so the king put a snake, and then in turn the boy cursed. So it looks like a tit for a tat for a tit. There is nothing wrong in it. But then here we see how the rishi is condemning his son by saying that what he had done is a great sinful activity. He's saying that you have committed a great sinful activity, because you have removed the protector. That means that Kali Yuga is going to go full fledged, and he's going to spread himself full fledged. That means all the great sinful actions, one way or other, is related to the Brahmana boy, because he stopped the real protectors or the controllers who were stopping Kali from coming forward. Text 42. Oh my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is the best among human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. He is never to be placed on an equal footing with uncommon men. The citizens of the state live in prosperity, being protected by unsurpassable prowess. So whatever we read in the purport is explained in this verse. There is no purport for this verse, so we'll go to the next one. Text 43. My dear boy, the Lord who carries the wheel of a chariot is represented by the monarchical regime, and when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanquish the unprotected subjects like the scattered lambs. So here Kali Yuga is fully predicted, right? So a pure person can become a pure devotee of the Lord when he becomes the king, and the monarchy is formed based on the dharma as prescribed in the Vedic literature. It protects. Any other system is doomed to fail, will only create problems. Even in democracy, like we were discussing, it's democracy. We see how nowadays, in the latest election that happened in America, people were saying the elections were completely run by the news media, who had their own agenda. So basically what happens is that is one thief supports another thief, and together they run something called an election, and whoever wins is the bigger thief. So and basically at the end of the day, who is exploited, who is cheated, it is the person who voted for them. So this is what happens all over the world in the term of democracy. Or you have something like a dictatorship, as in China, where people just become dictators, and then they control and they make people do whatever they want to do. So some places there is dictatorship, some places, so there is no real devotee based monarchical regime anywhere, because that line was ended prematurely by the Brahmana's curse and Parikshit Maharaj. And the Brahmana, being a great rishi, can see that this is going to happen in the future. And so now he is explaining to his son that how he acted without culture without thinking through something and how it is going to cause the destruction of the whole world and the varnashrama system. Text 44. Due to the termination of monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible. See how the rishi is accepting responsibility for what his son has done. As we all know, we saw in the case of Mandaka Maharishi how that he was cursed by Yamadharmaraj, but until certain age, the kid's karma falls to the father. So here the father is taking responsibility for the actions of his son, accepting, and he's saying both of us will be responsible because you cursed a great king. And because of this, the regime of monarchy, true devotees being the king of the whole world, that is going to be stopped, because of your activity, because Parikshit Maharaj is going to leave this material world before his sons can be trained and become great rulers. And and they have the capability to control the whole earth. Then what is going to happen is that is everybody, there's going to be bits and pieces. Slowly it will degrade, come to the point of no monarchy, which is what we have, and then it's completely a state of rogues and thieves. And the common man will always be affected because of this. And then we see how there were riots in America, and then all over the world how there is so much unnecessary war, killing, plundering is going on, in terms of democracy and religion and so many things. All this is happening because there is one single protector who can give common standard to everybody. And all this sins, the rishi is saying, will be ours because we are the one who is ending this one. Even though it was will of the Lord, still the rishi, also being a devotee, he is also taking responsibility for his son's action, and he is lamenting for it. So the rishi continues, text 45. At the time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the caste and the orders of the society and the Vedic injunction. Thus, they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification. As a result, there will be unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. So again, if somebody doesn't follow the Varnashrama Dharma, he is considered as an animalistic level. He is not even treated on a human level. Basic human level means he should be part of Varnashrama. If someone is outside the Varnashrama system, which is what we are today, in the most of the world is today, that means that we belong to an animalistic society, right? And the whole breakdown of the Varnashrama system starts when the king is not there, because yes, the Brahmanas are the heads, but the heads have to be protected, right? If the head is if the Kshatriya is not there to protect, this is how the degradation happened, right? The Brahmanas, even now there are some Brahmanas who do Vedic reading and Vedic literature, but the problem is that is just if you see the whole degradation of the Brahmana society, you would see that they were the first one to pick up this materialistic education, get government jobs, and move into different lines because the kings were not maintaining, right? So they can't just do Vedic studies, they can't just be interested in spiritual life. So they to maintain themselves, they took material education. And then now they are you would see that they excelled and they all got settled well. Then by the time they have no time, because they're old, they can't learn Vedic literature, or they, because the training was not done properly, they cannot accept the spiritual life properly. So then the whole Brahminical line is lost. So most of the Brahminical people who call themselves Brahmins in India, they don't follow the profession or the engagements of a Brahmana. Why? Because there is no system to support. The state is secular. It is not going to support a Brahmana. The Brahmana, he can't say, I'll do Veda Parayana, I'll only do Vedic studies and teach it. And then, the king, those days, the king will protect the Brahmanas, and they were supplied with all their needs so they can dedicate their life in spirituality. But, when the king stopped it, the Brahmanas also had to drop their dharma. And then in the whole world became ruled by and then the Kshatriya decline happened because they don't support the Brahmanas. They didn't have the power to protect the kingdom. So they lost, and then the whole Milechas and the Shudras, they won, and then now we see the whole world has become a population of Shudras. Right. So this is what is predicted by the Rishi. The Rishi, being a great, say, a great foreseer, can understand all this going to happen, and he can very clearly see this. Text 46. The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty, and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued and being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. So he's calling him Dharmapalo, protector of Dharma, right? And Mahabhagavat. So he's a Mahabhagavat. First of all, he was a great king. He was a pious king. He was a good protector of the whole society. And he is a Raja Rishi, and he has done many Ashwamedha Yajna, Rajasu Yajna, all those things he has done. And when he is tired, it's naturally when he is tired and hungry and all these things, at that point in time, if he had done a mistake, he shouldn't be cursed, right? Even normally, even when he is normal, if he does something like that, he should not be cursed. In addition, he was covered by thirst and hunger. uh, you know there is no reason to get angry with him and curse him. You should have understood. He's telling his son that you should have understood the situation far better. And in addition to all these qualities, he is also a Mahabhagavat. He's a great devotee, first class devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there is no qualification that you have, the father is saying to a son, or no basis. You neither have the qualification nor the basis to curse, but you have done so. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy who had no intelligence and who had committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate, and who deserved to be protected. So, so here the Rishi, he's accepting the responsibility for his son, and he is begging again, we see how Parikshit Maharaj repented for what he did. And on the other side, we see how the Rishi, he's taking a responsibility, and he is feeling sorry for what had happened. So we see how these two great souls, great Mahatmas, this meeting is not an ordinary meeting. So basically, the king, the father has very clearly explained why the king should not be punished. So what the boy did was, Srila Prabhupada writes, says sheer vanity. And such a person would generally be not forgiven. But then, because the father has begged for the mercy of the Lord, the boy could be, the boy has to be, forgiven by the Lord. That may raise a question, Prabhu. You have been saying, Prabhupada also writes that all this happened by the will of the Lord. So if the boy just acted as a tool, why should the boy be responsible for this offensive act? So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that the answer is that the offensive act by the child only was so that he could be excused very easily, and thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised why the Brahmana community as the whole is made responsible for allowing Kali into world affairs, the answer is given in Varaha Purana that the demons who acted inimically towards the Lord took birth in families of Brahmanas to take advantage of Kali Yuga. So we see here how both the sides are explained very nicely by the Prabhupada. The boy was used as a tool because at least there can be an excuse. He was immature, he was a small boy, he didn't know what he was doing, and then he could be excused. But then why we generally then talk badly about the Brahmana community as a whole, because in Kali Yuga the demons, they take birth in Brahmana family, so that they can take advantage of Brahmana family and enjoy what they are supposed to do. Text 48. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, or neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. This is also again very important words of practical applications for devotees. So generally we are asked this question, when somebody hurts me, what do I do? My spiritual master gave this answer that devotee means he should tolerate, right? We should never see the sinful person as the reason. Devotees always think I have done, or understand that this is all my past karma coming back to me, but by the protection of the Lord only a small portion is coming, and so I should accept it and keep going in life. There will also, that's what we saw also the verse that by Srila Prabhupada, such a devotee who sees even the reverses or bad conditions in his life as a mercy of the Lord, for him liberation is his birthright. So here again that is explained that the devotees of the Lord are so forbearing. So this is something very important to us. That doesn't mean we will allow others to cheat us or kill us or officially allow us to be abused or neglected. That is not what we are talking about. But if out of an unavoidable situation we are put in such circumstances, then we will not be disturbed by it and we will accept it with wholeheartedness. That is a sign of a devotee. So we should start practicing. We may not practice it outside, but at least within the moment we should be very tolerant to others, not be disturbed by what others are doing, and be very careful in our Krishna consciousness. So that is a practical application. So we should read this verse again and again, that in devotee means even though if he is killed, even at that time, he is not disturbed and he doesn't get upset with the other person. We see that in the case of Prahlad Maharaj, how his father tried to kill him in so many various ways. But at the end, when Narsingadev asked him a boon, Prahlad Maharaj asked for only one thing, that my father has done a lot of offenses, please forgive him. That is the mood of a devotee, right? He is ready to do even good to the person who tried to kill him also, right? Paradukha dukhi, parasukha sukhi. He is always, devotee means he is always thinking of the welfare of others, happiness of others. He's genuinely, thinking about, because he sees everybody as a part and parcel of the Lord, and as a service to the Lord, he wants every part and parcel to become part of the whole and serve the whole. Text 49. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. So the Rishi is very clear. He is not affected by it. Samika Rishi is very clear. He did not take the insult of king. He could understand why it was done, and being a very humble person, he tolerated it. Text 50. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. So again, a sign of an advanced person. He is not disturbed, whether it is a positive situation or a negative situation. In both the cases, he is not disturbed. Both the situation, he is very clear, very focused in his spiritual life, right? So material things doesn't disturb. He doesn't jump if there is a great activity that is causing happiness in the material world, like get a great money, power, position, whatever it is. The devotee is not disturbed. And at the same time, if something bad happens also, he is not disturbed. Both the situation, the devotee is not is not disturbed, right? Because if he is very happy jumping up and down, I'll do this for you, that for you, they're going here, let's go for a trip, this, that, I'll go, or nothing. Whatever happens, the devotee is focused on his service. Same thing, bad thing happens also, he is focused on his service. We see how Srivas Thakur, even when his son has died, he said, doesn't matter. His wife was crying. He said, don't stop crying. If you're crying disturbs Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you would have to cry for two people. I'll go jump in the Ganga. Doesn't matter. Even, it's a very extreme case. Even when his son was dead inside the house, out, in the courtyard, he was, he wanted to make sure that Mahaprabhu's Kirtan was not disturbed. That's the standard of a devotee. He's so high. Right, so as practicing devotees, we should slowly start, tolerating and applying these principles in our life. When something bad happens, we should learn to tolerate it without complaining about it or criticizing others or blaming others, right? We saw how even Dharma, when the king asked, right in front of him, Kali was hurting him, and when the king asked the Dharma, he didn't pinpoint Kali, right? He just said that there could be various reasons why I'm suffering. And that's when, Parikshit Maharaj said, you are not an ordinary person. You should be Dharma himself. Otherwise, nobody can talk like you. So that is the sign of a devotee. So a devotee means he should tolerate bad situations, and he doesn't point, because of him this happened. He is the reason. She is talking bad about me. They are doing this to me. Because of them, I'm not able to do this. So I'm going to do this back to them. This is not the right way to think, and this is not how a devotee should behave. A devotee means he understands. I am suffering because I have done something bad in the past, and that is coming back to me in the form of karma. So this is a very clear understanding, and this is a very important application of spiritual life. And only with this can we progress in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we will keep getting back and down in this cycle. All the time thinking, oh, this is bad. So as a devotee, we should be very conscious and practice this very much in our life. So that ends this chapter 18. So next week we'll start chapter 19, and hopefully we'll finish it in a couple of weeks and then go to canto number 2. So next chapter is about the appearance of Sukadev Goswami. It's a very important chapter, very beautiful chapter. So there are around 39 verses. So hopefully we'll be able to finish it in 2 weeks. And then in the new year, we can jump into our new topic, which is the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very wonderful, little bit technical. So there's going to be some. We're going to take a little bit more time. We'll go slower than the first canto, but then because there are a lot of deeper topics to cover. But yeah. So with that, I'll finish my class today. Grandaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.